let's take that same analogy and throw it onto Claude Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Let's do that, yeah? Because we know what Claude's done. Yeah.
So my fear was being his age and saying the same thing. And I had to figure out how to systemize what Powernomics is. Because if you tell people, yeah, I saw a man in Hyde Park hold up a book, and the white man says, well, I'm questioning you on this history and this history and this history. And he says, it's in the book. Only we could all tell the brother hadn't read the book because he didn't have any rebuttal for the man's things. So, and we're there like this, Jesus Christ is going to keep waving his book. And he kept waving the book. It's in the book. But the problem with people is we don't follow the book because we may not make the time to read. So we just regurgitate the title. We're great repeaters. And I said, this is no good. We need a system. Then you look for the delivery partners. So I identify all the delivery partners. But can you identify delivery partners to put the vehicle together today? Well, everybody's doing their own thing, just trying to stay above water, right?
Right. And this is
everybody's just trying to pay their own bills. So how do you want to call and draw down on people to do this work for no money at great expense to their families, their relationships and their commercial time? It's a big ask. So then I said, you know what, son? Go away and take up the call of that big ask. Just create the system that people can onboard, and then it becomes a living, breathing document to be improved upon throughout the ages by every generation. But let it be a system and an organization rather than a rhetoric that is to be repeated. Now, if we have it as an institution, everybody can onboard just from the website to play their role in those various departments. And now we're not talking anymore. Now we're actioning things that are going to be commercial in nature. They're going to be civic in nature. And when you solve civic problems, they end up being entrepreneurial. Let's take refuse collection. Refuse collection is more important than the function of some of our councillors. So it's worth money. Then what they do is they outsource to a commercial company to collect all of our refuse, commercial and residential. Right. That's worth money because you're answering a real world problem. And African Caribbean people have real world problems.
Okay. I like that. Because it's like you've looked at, I mean, when did you find the time to actually educate yourself? All right.
I constantly educate myself. I'm a lifelong learner. I recommend that we should all be lifelong learners because a degree that you got 30 years ago is irrelevant today. The world is turning. And the only thing that is a constant is change. You just said it. You were talking about Fruitly Bits and now look, cryptocurrency. So we as African Caribbean people that didn't bog ourselves down in a fiat currency or old banking mechanisms are capable of completely frog leaping Europeans because we don't have anything tied down. We are going to now adopt technology from where it is to put into our entities. So we can completely frog leap them. We're not committed by any of that weight that they have in their old outdated systems. Look, they got to get rid of all of the telephone lines to bring in G5. We don't have to do any of that. We don't have to do that on the continent. And we're supposed to be making these relationships based on what we do here, touching base with our peers on the continent. If you're an engineer here, you're supposed to touch base with an engineer there. And then supposed to create contracts to gobble up all this work within the commercial sector. So if we want to be wide asleep, it's our choice. But it's entirely up to us.
I think, you know, you've got a global perspective on what's going on. I think because a lot of us are either tied into the borough in which we live in terms of our head is down. Some of us are able to lift up and go M25. Some of us are able to lift up and go as far as Birmingham and Leeds. Yeah. I mean, how did your international connections come about?
Curiosity. Shall I tell you what the first point is? I have a very high value proposition of Dean Okai. I love Dean Okai. So if I go in a room and you tell me Jay-Z is over there, I'm not going to stutter in my elevator pitch based on the value I have for myself. So if I saw a talk like this, whether it was at a university, whether it was at a big corporate event, and I saw a brother or sister, I go straight to LinkedIn and I reach out to them. And within the afternoon, we're having a Zoom or a telephone conversation. So I know how easy it is to connect the dots wherever people are. And then when you build up a catalog of contacts and you build up a track record of putting solutions together, by and large, the people I contact now have already heard of me and they're already aware of people that I'm working with. So, but it starts from a mustard seed of one person who is a high value individual. And then you say, well, there's no high value individual that is out of my peer league. I consider I have that value and I know what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
But I'm not coming and complaining.
But I like your strategic approach though, because you've identified the influencers who influence the
masses. Yeah. Well, they're my delivery partners. Because if I have certain solutions that I don't believe have been adopted or put out yet, then I have to influence the influencers to create a critical mass. And when there's a critical mass of us, and we are now repeating the same rhetoric in the same way towards the same goal, it becomes an irresistible proposition to the masses. And then it's about having a viable vehicle that they can utilize that's practical in their lives. Because if you want people to adopt, add value to their lives. So ADPAC is there to add value to African Caribbean people's lives. It's not there for you if you're from Herzegovina, if you're not an African, or China, or Turkey. And God bless you. We can speak as peers in another way. Because if you want to align with us, I'm going to ask you what your budget is. Because we're peers, right?
Right. Okay.
Nothing for nothing, baby.
Okay.
Don't tell me we're here in solidarity because I must come out because you now have this problem in society. I will gladly advocate for you, King. What's your budget? Because my job is to go out of the family home and bring back for the family. So I can't give you my intellectual capital and experience for no money. That sounds bizarre for you to even ask.
But it's asked of us all the time. I think it was asked of us during the civil rights movement.
Absolutely, which is why everybody overtook us and then circumvented us when it came to being in the solution room because we were never there and we're still not there. I don't talk about civil rights because talking about civil rights is kind of like talking about the race game. It's all invented. I would rather talk about my inalienable human rights. So now that we're talking about my inalienable human rights, it's just a decent thing to do, right?
Right.
I don't want to talk to you about civil rights because they can change with your legislation. Bump your legislation. Let me set up an entity in trust. So we're just talking about common law. So now we're talking about human rights. We're not talking about civil rights because you can change them. So you can tell me it's legal for us to get married to dogs, but it's not legal for black people to come out in daylight based on civil rights. So keep your civil rights.
So then this structure here then, right? Start breaking it down for us.
Yes, sir. So ADPAC works across economics, education, employment, health, housing, justice, politics, trade and industry, and media. Each of those areas has a national director, and that's their specific expertise, what they have done in their professional life for 20, 30 years. Now, their role is to create the policy that we work around in each of those areas. So economics, if we're talking with finance professor, we are now building models that are going to support us. So a financial entity and how that works nationally, how that works internationally, to create the quickest route into us acquiring a banking license. So we wouldn't necessarily be looking at a national license, but a regional license, which is to each of the cities. Once we get that proof of concept, then we just duplicate in each city. And then they just become like what the Rothschilds did, tenets of a central banking system, which is ours. Now, if we're working with our own crypto wallet, which is an end-to-end wallet to deliver digital currency, then we have our own means of moving currency around outside of the SWIFT system. So we don't have to burn down Babylon. We live in a parallel universe. Education, with an education professor and an ex-head teacher, we have a curriculum, and we know exactly how that is to be delivered to our children, where they'll get a civic education and an entrepreneurial education that leads them to being the most productive citizens for our community. Very different from what we've previously done.
I'm going to stop you for a sec. Not because I'm being rude.
No, not at all.
But because you brought up education. Right?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't stop there.
No.
Right.
So then we set up the framework for the public health approach, which is what they did in Scotland to save their children from knife crime. So Edinburgh was the knife crime capital of Europe. And then what they did was the Scottish government created a joined up agency approach so that all those agencies would work around young people to create wraparound care. What started to happen was less young people fell through the gaps, which means less young people were addicted to substances. And then they worked from the schools, local authority, with the police, with national health, with the local extracurricular youth provision. So when they started talking about doing a public health approach here, we met the guys who came down from Edinburgh. But the problem is, in Scotland, everybody is an Anglo-Saxon, right?
Right.
Well, that isn't our problem here.
Yeah.
So our delivery partners need to be culturally competent. So then I went about finding the culturally competent delivery partners, London, Birmingham, Manchester, to deliver rites of passage, supplementary schools, you name it, child-parent intervention, child advocacy within the schools, youth psychologists, youth mentoring, and then child-parent intervention when the African Caribbean family breaks down. So we can send someone to mediate to help.
What I really like about that is the way it involves Andrew Muhammad, the way it involves the Manhood Academy, the way it starts to wrap around and bring everyone together. Yeah. Now, because I know that we're short of time.
Yes, sir.
I want people to subscribe to you, which I'm going to give them the details a bit later on. Yeah. But allow you to continue from education.
Yeah, I mean, all of the other departments work pretty much like that, coming up to politics, where we have a mandate to enable the political process to change legislation. So when I saw the We Matter Party forming, immediately I wanted to be part of that so that I could inform policy with inside and then connect them with all of my connections, so that now all of those people that we're talking about are involved in the political process. So then out of that, we realized that we need more than a party. We need an APPG, which is an all-party political group, so that every party, you have a member from Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, Green Party, Christian Party, We Matter Party, and all of those guys would be working on exclusively African Caribbean issues, whether we are resident, whether we are immigrants in the Caribbean islands or in the African countries that are in the Commonwealth countries. So in every single area is what exclusively works for us. Now, the national leadership create the policy. Where you see it says regional chapter, which is in any of our boroughs, so Lambeth, Lewisham, Southwark, Croydon, wherever that is, we have a regional chair. Now, the regional chair's job is to coordinate all of the grassroots groups in that borough, professionals and advocates to serve the membership who are the African Caribbean population of that borough. So that we keep it robust, we're opening a chapter in each of the boroughs. So Enfield, Haringey, Hackney, Southwark, Lambeth, Lewisham, Croydon, Lambeth and Brent, because we've got very strong numbers in those boroughs. We don't want to be where we're not, because then it's just for optics. But everything that we're doing now is about function. It must be functional to improve our people's socioeconomic mobility.
bruv, Dean, I gotta say respect to you, bruv.
Yes, King.
I have to say respect to you because, like I said, I worship Andrew Muhammad. I worship Robin Walker. They've really taken me backwards. They've done Sankofa to me, basically. They've done Sankofa to me.
Sankofa, yeah.
Yeah, for me to realize exactly where I am today. But no one, and I mean that, no one has strategically put anything down for me to turn around and say, okay, this is how we move forward. You know, collectively, as one.